Hey, how are we doing, everyone? My name is Trevon from freestudiotime.com, and today we're going to go over the difference between stock and paid plugins. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So is there a difference between paid and stock plugins? I've heard this question brought up a lot in the past, and most people say the same thing. No, there isn't a difference, but in my personal experience, I say there is a big difference. First, I say there's a difference is because stock plugins have limited functions compared to paid. For instance, in the Fruity Reverb 2, there's nowhere to EQ except the high and low cut knobs. So if I want to add any subtractive or additive EQ to my reverb, I have to open an entire EQ and do it from there. Also, you're limited to the types of reverbs you can use compared to the wide variety available on a paid reverb. So I'm gonna show you the paid reverb that I use every single time I mix a song, and I'm gonna compare that to Fruity Reverb. So this is my paid reverb over here, and this is Fruity Reverb. So there's like a few of the differences that I was talking about. This is the high cut and low cut. This is pretty much for the EQ. All these knobs are is pretty much just this over here, the high cut and low cut. But if I wanted to add this makeup gain right here, I'd have to go and make an entirely separate EQ just to add that little hump right here. Also, another thing, like the reflections, the plate, the chamber, like how I can switch through all these, I don't even have anywhere near to this many options on this reverb right here. All I have is size, diffusion, speed, and mod depth. I mean, you can tweak around with these a little bit, but the end result that you get with both of these, if you were to use both of these side by side, the end result will be way greater on this one, just because you have a lot more control over a lot of detailed things within the reverb compared to Fruity. So definitely something you should keep in mind. Now, a lot of people say the technique defines your results from a plugin, but now that I'm at the level that I'm at, it takes a lot of extra steps to get the same result with plugins, just like how I mentioned. So another example would be Fruity Compressor. So on Fruity Compressor, you can see the only options you have to adjust your actual compression is the threshold, attack, release, ratio, gain, and knee. Versus the 1176, you have your input, you have your output, which is just makeup gain, attack, release, you have your ratio over here. You can actually see how much gain reduction you're getting as you're playing the songs, and you can control you can control input if you're looking at the input knob, or you can control how much output you're getting, and you can just turn the compression off. You can also see you can also control what type of analog you want to use, like what type of frequency you want to compress. You can choose between what type of color you want. You can control where in the mix the compressor is from right here. You can just control so many different things that you can't from the Fruity Compressor, and that's not even the main thing. The main thing is just how the actual compressor works. So as far as processing power, it definitely varies from compressor to compressor, and in my experience of using compressors, I say there's definitely some compressors that just sound like and there are some compressors that sound good. And you have to think, compression is like one of the main components that get a song to sound good, that get a vocal recording to sound good and sit inside of a mix. So if you don't have good compression, you have to do a bunch of different hoops and hurdles to get to a good end result. It's just gonna make the process, it's gonna kind of dull the process, you know. And especially when it comes to this, we have so many different things that we need to do for one mix. It's best to kind of like, you know, keep it simplistic as far as the techniques that we're doing. We don't want to be doing things that we don't have to be doing, because we can, whatever time that we're spending doing that extra thing, we could be doing that next step in the mixing process and making that song sound better. when you're using stock plugins, there's a lot of things. Well, it won't be a lot of things, but there's some things that you're gonna need that the DAW just doesn't provide. For instance, Fruity doesn't have a de-esser. The only way for you to use a de-esser in Fruity off stock plugins is to use a multiband compressor. And that just, using a multiband compressor as a de-esser, it just takes it takes probably about 5 or 6 more minutes to just use the compressor, the multiband compressor, as compared to throwing on that de-esser plugin, and it takes you probably like a minute to de-ess the vocals, and then you can move on to the next step. So it's like you're saving yourself like a whole extra like 5 or 4 minutes just adding that plugin on there. Because I mean, it's just like something that's so simple. And if you don't even know how to use a multi-band compressor, we could be talking about like 20 minutes versus just like 1 minute of using the de-esser, you know? So that's definitely something to keep in mind. So is there the major differences between paid and stock plugins is just the time you're willing to spend to get your song to sound as best as possible. All right, everyone, if you want to learn how to mix your vocals with stock plugins, yes, I'm talking about the plugins you have in your DAW right now. I will show you exactly how to do just that with my free tutorial. Just click the link in the description and I'll get you taken care of. But all right, everyone, I hope you got a lot of value out of this video. I will catch you on the flip side.